computer. Here we go. All right. So today happens to be our wedding anniversary.
Oh my God.
33 years today. We took the leap. And so we decided to talk today about beliefs, beliefs about marriage and how they can make or break a relationship. Um, because we had both had relationships before and we had strong beliefs about them and had to change some beliefs about them. So we know about that, but also we're reading and studying The Nature of Personal Reality, the book by Seth, and it's reminding us again of the power of those beliefs. But before I start, I'd like to
Sure.
start with an opening prayer. If you want to join me, this is Ernest Holmes,
It's a good one too.
and they're always
Actually, they're all
always
good, but
perfect.
yeah.
So let us begin. Grateful for each success and each new accomplishment, I advance to new and greater revelations of truth. Knowing that spirit within me is free, I am no longer bound by the patterns of yesterday. Freedom is made manifest through my thoughts and my words and actions. Becoming conscious of myself as I really exist in the mind of God, I find that I am walking in pathways of peace, that something within me, like a magnet, attracts that which belongs to itself. This something is love, the supreme impulsion of the universe. I know that I have no existence apart from this love. As I grow in the knowledge that I am one with the Spirit, I know that I will grow in the ability to use the God-given power within me. Today, I have complete confidence in the law of good. I have a complete sense of protection in the knowledge that good attends me. I experience the joy of knowing that this good permeates everything I do, say, and think. I realize that this good recognizes me and that I cannot depart from it. Good is forever expressing itself to me and to everyone whom I love. It fills me with a great surge of life. I consciously receive this good and loose it into action. There is a song at the center of my being that everyone hears, a joy that everyone feels, a strength that is imparted to all. And so it is.
Well done.
Do you want to talk about a little what we're learning or being reminded of about the power of beliefs?
That every belief. No, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
you. No, not ready yet. Okay. Well, we know we teach, we believe that our beliefs always manifest. But what has that got to do with relationships? Well, everything, everything. And so I had some beliefs with my first marriage that manifested in ways that were not satisfactory to me. I believed that there was one head of the household, and that head of the household made all the decisions, and the other partner had to abide by them. I believed it was till death do us part, even if it was killing me. So, so those didn't work very well for me, and I ended up changing my mind about them, and also decided that I would never get married again. I was willing to have relationships. I just didn't want to get married again because I didn't want to belong to someone again. And so when Bob and I decided to get married, I we wrote our wedding vows, and I did not vow till death do us part. I vowed, so long as we both shall love. And I thought that was perfect. That I was willing to commit to that. And for many years on our anniversary, we'd look at each other and say, "Well, you want to commit for another year?" And we kept renewing, and finally we quit even asking the question because I had managed, and I think he too had managed to change beliefs so that they worked for us. One of the things that I had come to believe is that because we were both therapists at the time, psychotherapists, you could talk about things in the marriage. You could talk about things that you weren't really happy about. You could talk about things you might want to change. You could talk about behaviors of the other person that bothered you and request a change. You could you could talk about sex and what you liked and didn't like and want more of or less of. You can talk about those things. In my first marriage, I was 18 when I got married. I didn't think anybody could ever talk about sex. You know, it's supposed to be a nonverbal thing, I thought. So lots of beliefs affect a marriage. Do you believe that you're free in a relationship, or does it change your behavior? Um, as I say, do you believe you have a say in things? So those beliefs can make or break a relationship. I know people who believe that the person is eventually going to leave. They always leave. And I've actually seen them start fights and things to say, well, is he going to leave this time? Is he going to leave now? They kind of actually push them into it because they
Right.
believe
It
people.
becomes
Oh,
it becomes a kind of proving ground to prove that you love me, that you don't leave. At the same time, it's an encouragement to leave. And the message, of course, to the person who gets this message is apparently I'm not that desirable, or I'm not supposed to stay, or I'm not wanted. They get the feeling of it's being temporary. Eventually, they figure out it's time to leave, and then eventually, the person who said you're going to leave gets to be right. You know, one of the things about our beliefs that's important is that we have to make them right. If they didn't make them right, then they wouldn't survive. So when you believe that relationships don't work, the underpinning then, or the architecture of the relationship will be founded on things don't really work. It's a temporary relationship. And that's important. These beliefs that we have about a relationship get played out as tests or as exams or as strategies to prove themselves and or to prove they're not true. If I believe I'm not lovable, then I'm going to try to prove to you that I'm not lovable, and you're going to have to prove to me that I am lovable. And the chore or the task behind that is so enormous that eventually either one or both people break down. And I think that's probably one of the key ones that I see in as a therapist I've seen for years is that people will work from the premise, I'm not lovable, but I want you to love me. And so when you say things like, I love you, yeah, yeah, right. Well, I'm sure you don't really. So eventually it disqualifies the person who is the one saying, I love you, to the point where they stop saying it. And then the person who is feeling unloved says, see, you stopped saying it. I knew it was going to happen. It becomes, our beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies in a relationship. And that's really, really important. A belief I had that I didn't know I had for a very long time was that there was no room for me. And when I say no room for me, I grew up in a family where there was no room for any of us, where there were 7 kids and there was room enough for possibly one. And so because there was no room for us or no room for me, I came into each relationship believing I want to be in this relationship, I'm committed to this relationship, but I understand there's no room for me. And that's a, you don't see it coming up, but when it does show up, you have no idea that it's operating and that it's operating behind the scenes. It took a long time for me to get to the point where I said, not only is there room for me, but I can create a space for me that I like. And I can create a space for me that I like being in. And that also means that other people can come into your space and enjoy it. When you say there's no room for me, there's also then no room for you. And without meaning to or without realizing it, you disqualify anybody being with you. I share that one. It's a personal one, but I share it because I've also discovered over the years that a lot of people have that belief also that there's no room for them. Women in particular, I think, unfortunately, are often cursed with having no room for them, their thoughts or their lives or their free time or anything else, because when they have children, very often, or when we have children, very often, the belief is they come first, I come second or last or not at all. And so it reinforces an unspoken belief. There's no space for me in this relationship or in this world. My job is to care for everyone who has a space and to even take care of their space, but not necessarily my own.
For an example of that, for example, in India, the woman serves the man first, then the children, and she eats last. Actually, in another location, Now, we don't do it that badly in our country, but often the woman does serve everybody, make sure everybody's got enough before they eat anything themselves.
Right, and very often too, and I've seen it in our relationship where there's one bite left, and we each look at each other with who gets that last piece of the cookie. And without thinking about it very often, one of us will defer out of habit rather than out of, yes, I'd like to share that with you, or I'd like you to have that last bite. I'll watch you enjoy it. I won't ever have another one probably, but it's okay.
Your whole life.
Yeah, for the rest of my life, yes. It does feel that way if it's a chocolate covered brownie, it does feel that way. But I think we have these automatic responses that we don't realize we have. Now, let's bring this into the spiritual realm. If there's no space for you, if there is no, if you're not important enough to be valued in the relationship, then how can you value your own spirituality? How can you value your own journey? How can you have your spiritual life have value if you've already discounted yourself and you're not important? And so it's an important thing for us to say, I have value in this relationship. I have value in all relationships. I have value. And when that doesn't seem to fit, somehow it doesn't match your sense of self, then it's important to go back to your beliefs and ask yourself, what is it I've come to believe that when it comes to not counting, that I put myself first and I put other people, having value first ahead of me. What could I do to change that belief? Because these core beliefs are operating all of the time and are undoing us, quite literally.
Right. It was nice to be reminded by Seth that our beliefs are all powerful. In fact, he said that the inner self is always creating our experience, attracting to us things based on our beliefs. And first it checks the conscious mind. See, does this match the beliefs? Is it in keeping with the beliefs? Because whatever is manifested by you for you is based on your beliefs. And this is in the realm of the conscious mind. And we may think that we don't know what our beliefs are, but all you have to do is look at your life. Your life is a mirror of what you believe. Now, that can be a hard one to accept. It can be hard to accept because we don't want to take responsibility for everything we experience in our life, but it is. And if you don't put it into words, with what my life looks like, I must believe such and such. And even if you reject that idea, said, no, I can't possibly believe that. Well, think about it for a while. Perhaps you do believe it because your life is outpicturing what you believe.
In many ways, the way we see the world is the way we see the world through a pair of binoculars. And what happens is that very often we don't realize we have no peripheral vision. We only see ahead of us. And because sometimes we can see what we think so far ahead of us, we don't see everything that surrounds us and everything in our environment. We don't think to turn our head. And so when you're looking at life through a pair of binoculars, there can be a tree 5 feet to the right that you don't see. We see through our beliefs. And those beliefs, on the one hand, allow us to have great distant vision, but they often limit the width or depth of our vision. And I think that's an important piece as we look at ourselves and say, how did I miss that? If lots of people have said they love you and it doesn't feel that way, is their behavior not in sync with that? Does their behavior not match that? Or do you have a pair of binoculars that allow you to see distant aloneness or isolation or rejection, but don't have the ability to see the depth and the width of love and caring?
Now, Seth reminds us that we can change our beliefs. He says, just like a painter washes washable paint off his hands, when you recognize it and you say, I don't want to believe that. That doesn't work for me. You can change it. And one of the ways to change situations that you're not happy with, let's take the body, for example, because your beliefs create your body.
And
too.
you've got one.
Yes, and you've got one. But if you don't like one part of it or how one part is working right now, he says, focus on another part that is working well. Because what you think about and imagine outpictures and form. So focus on it in a relationship. Let's say if you're having an issue that's conflicting, Focus on another area that's working well, because when you focus on what's working well, more will work well. And when you give thanks for it, when you're grateful for it, more happens that you're grateful for. And the same thing with the body. So you don't focus on, oh, I don't like that this part of me is doing that or isn't working well, or medical tests show this, that, or the other. He says even naming diseases does not serve us well because it helps us give them power.
Right.
And he says your body knows how to make adjustments for your body so that it works perfectly. If you believe that it can, then you don't have to give that power away. So the same is true of relationships. I remember a marriage counseling technique when a couple comes in very unhappy with their current state in a marriage, is to ask them to tell you about how and when and why they fell in love.
Hmm.
And they're recounting the story of how they fell in love and why and what they loved about the other person reminds them about that. That's still there and can totally shift the focus on wanting to end it, especially if you teach them how to communicate about what's not so satisfactory.
It makes me wonder what would happen when someone has lost their spirituality. If you were to ask them, tell me about when you discovered it. Tell me that awakening or that experience you had when you discovered your spirituality and how that felt. Maybe we need to be reminded of the beginning of our journey to be able to connect again with it. Some of us have had spiritual relationships like other relationships that have seemed to go, that have gone bad, or that have weakened or lessened. And what we need to do is go back and say, what was the magic? What was going on with that? What was happening to me that had me think this was valuable, and how did I lose it? And can I go back and can I create more of that? But the conscious mind, and this is an important piece, the conscious mind has the ability, because it's conscious, to redirect.
Yeah.
If you looked at your GPS and you said, I'm not happy with this route, you could say what the unconscious says, this is where we're going. But the conscious mind can say, well, then type in some new coordinates. And as soon as you type in the new coordinates, what happens is the screen changes, and there's not any history of there ever having been any other route. There's only the route now that you've decided to go on. We believe more often in what we have had on the screen than what we currently have on. And imagine how crazy it would be if we changed the map and you're following it and you're driving along and say, well, we can't go there because I remember that map that we had on before said that we needed to go this way. Do you remember the map we had on before? And the one that we have on currently is not valid? Well, no, because that other one was on for a much longer time than this one's been on. So let me see if I get this right. I put in the new coordinates, it's giving us the instructions and the directions, and you're saying, no, it doesn't feel right to me because I spent 4 hours looking at the old one, and that's the one I think we should go with. Can we get that back? I mean, that sounds insane, but is it any different than the coordinates that we place in our mind for our relationships? You see, I got the coordinates. Nothing works very long. No one really loves me. Nothing's really ever very good. The only thing we can hope for is that we're going to survive today. That's the best we could do. Those are my coordinates for the day. Wow. Would you like to change them? Well, no, I'd like somebody who has the same coordinates so we can fight together. And we unfortunately even often find people who have the same deficits that we do so that we can hope to overcome them, but we don't have the capacity or the willingness to change the coordinates. Or sometimes more insidious than that is I come into the relationship believing there's no space for me. And the person who finds me says, at last I found somebody who doesn't need any space. And that person makes sure that there isn't any space. And I make sure that I continue to thrive on my notion that there's no space for me. Now, what happens in a relationship that's healthy is the person says, I see that you keep counting yourself out. Could you count yourself in? I'd like to have you in if we're going to be in this together. And all of a sudden, then there's an opportunity to take a look at the coordinates and say, you know, the coordinates that I'm looking at don't ever include me. And I guess I need to do some reevaluating. I need to do some changing here. And then it's when we can make the changes.
Exactly. So again, the power of the conscious mind. Recently, we've been studying in some classes the Joe Dispenza work, and his focus is on getting to the subconscious. And the subconscious is very powerful because
Huge.
it accepts what it's told and acts on it. But we have a tendency then to discount the conscious mind and say, well, it's the subconscious. And psychology under Freud really took that track, that you were powerless over whatever was hidden in your subconscious. So this is a good reminder to say, no, no, just like Ernest Holmes says in The Science of Mind, no, it is the conscious mind that holds the power of changing beliefs and changing your direction and changing what you attract to you. It is all powerful. And it's part, but there's really no separation between this conscious and subconscious, or your inner self and your outer self, but we kind of subdivide them to make
Hmm.
sense of them. But it's really a good reminder to know that your conscious mind is where the power is, because it holds the beliefs. I've known people, and we worked with a gentleman a few years ago who believed he was too old for another relationship. He had a lifelong partner who had died, and he just said, well, I'm too old now for a relationship. And Bob said, really? Why is that? You don't enjoy the company, you don't enjoy intimacy and friendship and love. And well, yeah, but I just thought I was too old for that. And Bob sort of gave him permission to date. And he was just really having a good time dating and entertaining again. And he had a lot to share. He had a lovely home. He had a rich background and experience, and he enjoyed making new relationships again. And I see that a lot
Hmm.
also when people have had really good relationships with a partner who dies, saying, "Well, that was my relationship, and then that part of my life is over now." Well, if you say so, you're the decider. But you can decide differently again. You can choose again.
We have a lot of rules about things that don't necessarily make any sense, but because we have those rules, we often ignore that we have choice. Last night there was an old movie we haven't seen in probably 5 or 6 years. It came on a second time, and I saw it on HBO, and I thought, I'm going to watch this, and it immediately went through my head is, I love this movie, but we can't watch it again because we've already seen
Yeah.
it several times before. If you've already seen some part of your life several times before that you'd like to see again, you're welcome to go back and rewind it. You're welcome to go back and say, let's play that one again. Let's see what we got out of it. And when the interesting thing is, when we watched the movie, I saw things I hadn't seen before, and I've only seen the movie probably 10 times. And I heard things I haven't heard before. You see, because you're always brand new to the experience of living, even when you're going back and looking at something that you've looked at before. You're looking at it with new eyes if you choose to. You're looking at it with a new light because you're not the person you were last week or an hour ago. And Judith,
So I'm reviewing notes that we made. Um, Seth again said that let's see, where is it? Um, I can't remember what I even said. It's helpful to know that your beliefs are not necessarily reality. They're just your beliefs. That's a really important thing. We say, well, I believe it because that's been my experience. Yes, that's been your experience. You may have experienced a lot of it in childhood. It doesn't make it the truth with a capital T.
mm-hmm.
It makes it your experience only. It does not make it reality. And you can change your reality by changing your experience, by changing your belief. So that's what I experienced in childhood, or that's what I saw with my parents, or that's what happened in my past relationship. But it's not reality. We need to know that we create our experience. It's just experience.
I had a friend who was afraid of dogs, and she said, I have a good reason to be afraid of dogs. I was bitten by a dog, and I still have the scars. And she showed me the scars that she had from the dog that bit her when she was just a little child. And she said, and I've met many dogs since then, and I've seen many of them that'll turn on you, and dogs just are vicious. That's my reality. And so I had the occasion of being in a situation where I could give her a 3-day-old puppy. And I said, would you be willing to hold this puppy? And she said, it looks like a hamster. I said, well, then pretend you're holding a hamster. And she held the little hamster dog. And she said, this is so cute and so beautiful. And I said, would it be okay with you if when the dog gets a little older, we come back and visit this puppy? And she said, I think we could do that. we went back and we visited the puppy when he was a month old, and for some reason the puppy seemed to either remember or felt affection towards her, and immediately went to her, not to bite her but to lick her. And anyway, within 6 months she became a dog owner. Her reality, and she got that puppy, but her reality was dogs are vicious, dogs bite, dogs hurt, and I can prove it to you. I can even give you the statistics on the breed and everything else. So that was her reality. But basically what she was saying is, I'm going to only include in my reality those things that support the belief I have. And the things that don't support that are not interesting to me or not of value to me. In many ways, that looks like our political system right now. When somebody says something about the person that you don't approve of that's positive, if you're not careful, you'll discard it. And you'll discard it not because it's not true, but because it doesn't match the reality that you're building, the story that you've got about the condition that you're in.
So I looked at my notes and saw another belief I put down. When a belief that we had when we got married, because we'd been through relationships, several that had ended, we knew that people and relationships were fragile. And so we treated them that way. We treated each other that we treated each other as if, your feelings are fragile and important. The relationship is fragile. Let's treat it with great respect and honor each other, honor the relationship. Because I don't know about Bob really, but I know that in my relationship, the first one, when we got married, it was okay. You belong to me now. So, you can't leave me. I can treat you any way I want. And it's like, excuse me, but that's the way it was. And I believe that that's the way it was too. And so I didn't know how to change it. But people and relationships are fragile. You need to treat them like the delicate things that they are. And so you treat them with respect, with love, with care, with tact, with honoring each other, and that way you can talk about even the most difficult things.
But imagine treating every relationship like an intimate relationship with that same respect and that same caring about how the other person is in relationship to it. Now, I know that when we got married, I very gently and very thoughtfully and very lovingly approached Judith with the collar and the leash. And she just railed against it. I couldn't believe it because I thought, you were mine. I'll take you for a walk. No, take the dog for a walk. No, but I think if we treated all relationships like they have that, I don't want to say fragile as much as I want to say delicate.
Delicate, yeah.
That feelings feelings have lots of nerve endings. And every feeling has 1,000 nerve endings that it's easy to touch. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't go there, but it means we would go there with respect. We would go there with thoughtfulness and with intelligence and with tact. I think what we often do is we say, I'm having a strong feeling, therefore anything I want to say or do is justified because I'm having a strong feeling.
And I'm just saying how I feel, but actually they're attacking.
I'm going to annihilate you, but it'll be because I feel like it. I see now I feel better. Yeah. So I think we've used up our time really quickly today. I can't believe this.
We're already quickly. Yeah.
We're celebrating our 33rd wedding anniversary, as we said earlier, and we're going to end on time so that we can go out and eat.
Celebrate at a nice restaurant.
That's right.
On the Intercoastal. So let's close with a closing prayer.
Yeah. So let's know together that as we are together in mind and spirit and body, that we share so much more than we ever suspected we shared, and that we're in this together, and that being in this together, this thing called life and love and the experience of living, we know that treating each other well is exactly what we are up to and about. And we commit today to knowing even at a deeper level how it is to love, how it is to be in the richest and most powerful way. And we say yes to it, and we say yes to it knowing that it is done. It is done in the mind of God. It is done in the mind of us. It is done in all that there is. And we say yes, and we say thank you. And together we say, and so it is.
Congratulations. Have